The computer screen flickers, a stark red report flashing across it. A 50 million yen loan has just vanished without a trace. Before your hand can even touch the cold cup of coffee on your desk, the entire glass door of the office shatters under a heavy kick. 3 men in tailored black suits step inside, tattoos peeking out from under their pristine white collars, their pinky fingers cut short. Your boss, an overweight man who usually spends his days barking orders, instantly drops to his knees on the floor, trembling and bowing his head. The missing money doesn't belong to this microfinance company. It's laundered cash from the Tojo clan, one of the most powerful Yakuza syndicates in Tokyo. Your boss points directly at your face, blaming you for approving the loan just to save his own skin. The lead enforcer pulls out a silenced handgun, taps it lightly against your boss's temple, and then turns his gaze to you. He gives you exactly 24 hours to find the debtor, or tomorrow your family will receive an urn of your ashes. You don't panic or cry. An extreme survival instinct triggers a cold, calculated calmness within you. You immediately hack into the city's traffic camera database, cross-reference credit card transactions, and track the pinging signals of disposable burner phones. You discover the fugitive has converted part of the funds into cryptocurrency and is hiding out in a rundown motel on the outskirts of Osaka. You hand over the address. They don't leave you behind. They throw you into the backseat of an armored Toyota Century and drag you right to the location. You stand huddled in the corner of the room, watching as they tie the debtor to a chair, using a claw hammer to shatter every joint in his fingers until he screams out the cryptocurrency wallet password. The smell of blood and raw terror chokes the narrow room. When the account confirms the funds have been fully transferred back, the leader wipes the blood from his hands, tosses the hammer onto the floor, and slowly walks toward you. He looks you dead in the eye, stating that thugs who only know how to use their fists are now obsolete. What the family truly needs are minds capable of invisibly moving money through international financial systems and hunting down traitors using technology. He hands you a black leather ledger and a lapel pin shaped like the syndicate's crest. You know you don't have the right to refuse. From the moment you pin that crest to your chest, the life of an ordinary office worker is officially over. You step over the broken body on the floor, becoming a debt collection specialist for the underworld. The first month passes in agonizing tension as you begin taking over low-level debts. These aren't the brainless street gang shakedowns with smashed windows and spray-painted threats that people usually see on the news. You are operating within a much more sophisticated system. The first survival rule you learn is that physical violence is a last resort for the simple-minded. Psychological collapse is the master key that forces people to cough up the cash. You are handed a list of 30 debtors, mostly desperate gamblers, small business owners taking out predatory loans to keep their companies afloat, and addicts. Interest is calculated weekly, sometimes daily, at extortionate rates that strangle any hope of repaying the principal. You don't carry a knife or a bat. Your only weapon is information. You spend hours scouring the dark web and leaked databases to dig into the lives of each debtor. You know exactly which kindergarten their daughter attends, where their wife works, and which hospital is treating their elderly parents. When you call to collect, you don't shout death threats. You simply call them in the middle of the night, using a calm, caring tone to ask if their little girl got home safely from school today, or gently remind them that their elderly mother's hospital bill is due, and it would be a shame if the facility cut off her oxygen supply. The dead silence and choked gasps on the other end of the line are the sounds of total submission. You realize you are starting to like this feeling of power. It seeps into your blood like a drug. The same people who might have looked down on you on the subway are now crying and begging you for a few extra days to sell their houses. But with that illusion of power comes the organization's ruthlessly strict rules. This system operates like an inhumane military machine. If you collect the money, you keep a 10% commission, a massive sum that allows you to upgrade from a shabby suburban apartment to a luxury high-rise in central Tokyo, wearing designer suits, and strapping the first expensive watch of your life onto your wrist. That is how the system rewards your cruelty. But if you fail, if you let a debtor escape or die before squeezing out every last coin, that debt is automatically transferred to your name. In the world of the Yakuza, there is no room for explanations or apologies. The money must be produced, either from the debtor's assets or paid in your own blood. This realization forces you to devise smarter collection strategies. Instead of backing debtors into a corner and pushing them to commit suicide, which would wipe out the debt completely, you start turning them into financial puppets. You force bankrupt business owners to sign their companies over to Yakuza front corporations, using those legal entities to launder dirty money. You instruct gamblers with clean records to take out low-interest loans from legitimate banks to pay back the syndicate, cleverly transforming an illegal black market debt into a valid white market one, shifting the entire risk of capital loss onto the state's financial system. You are directly hacking into the country's economic system, exploiting legal loopholes to enrich the gang. The deeper you sink, the more you realize the terrifyingly thin line between a legitimate financial expert and a white-collar criminal. This sharpness makes the high-ranking bosses at headquarters start paying attention to your name. You are no longer a disposable pawn scraping up loose change on the street. You are preparing to be pulled up to a much higher stakes table, where the upcoming debtors are no longer the impoverished bottom feeders of society, but corrupt politicians, corporate executives, and massive whales holding billions of yen, people with enough power to send armed tactical police to knock on your door at any moment if you make even the slightest mistake. 6 months later, the family crest pin on your lapel is no longer a burden, but a master key unlocking the velvet-lined doors of the elite. You are promoted to the Corporate Debt Recovery Division, where the numbers don't stop at tens of millions, but hundreds of millions of yen. Your new target is a logistics company executive who just embezzled a full 500 million yen of the syndicate's port investment funds and fled to Macau. The high-ranking bosses in the family want to send a hit squad over there to handle it, but you brush the idea aside, asserting that spilling blood on foreign soil will only ignite a gang war and the money will evaporate forever. You convince them to let you handle it the digital age way. Sitting in your luxury Roppongi apartment, you begin your stealth hunt. No need for firearms or loud threats. You drop $20,000 on the dark web to purchase a serverless malware strain and deploy it to the executive's phone via a spoofed carrier message. The moment the system is breached, his entire digital life is laid bare before your eyes. You don't rush to demand the money. Instead, you carefully collect every shattered piece, shady transaction emails with corrupt officials, photos of a secret second family his official wife knows nothing about, and most importantly, the cryptographic string leading to his offshore bank accounts. Instead of a direct attack, you use algorithms to generate a flood of suspicious transactions pouring into his accounts, tricking and triggering Interpol's automated anti-money laundering systems. Within 48 hours, the executive's credit cards and bank accounts are completely frozen. He is trapped in a luxurious Macau penthouse, unable to pay his room bill, unable to pay his private security team, and completely isolated from the outside world. Only then do you send a single email attaching a photo of his illegitimate son playing in a park, accompanied by an anonymous cryptocurrency wallet link. The psychological collapse happens exactly as you calculated. With no way out and backed into a corner by the very financial system he once relied on, the desperate executive transfers the entire 500 million yen in cryptocurrency plus a 10% penalty interest purely in exchange for your silence and the safety of his little family. You complete the mission flawlessly, without spending a single bullet, without leaving any physical evidence for the police. But the arrogance of a system manipulator has blurred a fundamental rule of the underworld. Every stream of money has an owner, and when you interfere with a cash flow, you inevitably step on someone else's toes. 6 hours after the debt is recovered, your internal network is completely taken down, your monitors going pitch black before a flashing GPS coordinate appears. The entity on the other end demands a face-to-face meeting. You are forced to fly to Macau overnight, stepping into a dead silent VIP room with stark, flat white walls glowing with a blinding brightness. Standing offset to the right side of that empty room is a triad boss. He wears a sharp black suit with a loose black tie. There are no hulking bodyguards or flashy weapons. His hands are completely bare, stripped of the brass knuckles typical of underworld enforcers. Yet the pressure radiating from this man is incredibly suffocating. A simple scar cuts across his temple, and an unlit cigarette dangles carelessly from his tight, straight mouth. He maintains a perfectly still posture, casting a dangerous, suspicious, and watchful gaze to the left, pinning you in place. Your use of Interpol to freeze that executive's accounts inadvertently blocked a massive money laundering operation belonging to the Triads. Now, this boss wants you to pay for that interruption not with money, but by forcing you to become an inside mole to siphon financial data from your own Tojo clan. You nod slowly under the Triad boss's piercing gaze, knowing that a single blink of hesitation right now is enough to turn your black suit into a coffin. You take the malware-loaded USB from his hand, trading your loyalty to buy a one-way ticket of survival back to Tokyo. Returning to your safe house apartment in Roppongi, you have zero intention of becoming a sacrificial pawn for any faction. The Tojo clan's financial system is a complex labyrinth, but the Triad's infrastructure also suffers from countless leaky vulnerabilities. Instead of plugging that USB straight into the syndicate's internal servers as ordered, you tear its source code apart, rewrite the entire command structure, and create a two-way data filter. You begin establishing a highly sophisticated double-entry bookkeeping system, creating ghost debts under the guise of virtual shell companies. When the Triads demand you siphon tens of millions of yen from the Tojo, you cleverly redirect that cash flow from black accounts currently under investigation by the Japanese police. This way, you simultaneously help the Tojo clan disperse funds and wipe their legal traces clean, while fulfilling your money funneling quota to blind the Triads. You are walking a tightrope of death, playing the invisible puppeteer, forcing two massive underworld empires to interact with and cover for each other through chains of cryptocurrency transactions scrambled across thousands of spoofed IP addresses. Every single line of code you type is a death sentence hanging over your head. But the extreme allure of manipulating billions of yen in the shadows makes it impossible to stop. This digital magic trick lasts for barely 3 months, until the micro-fluctuations in the cash flow start drawing attention at the highest levels. You receive an emergency summons to the Tojo clan's ancient estate, hidden in the outskirts of Kyoto. The air is eerily silent, the scent of incense clinging tightly to the sliding wooden walls. You kneel on the tatami floor, bowing your head to the ground before the Oyabun, the supreme boss of the entire syndicate. In the corner of the room, a fluffy cat curls up lazily, occasionally opening its bright eyes to observe your slightest movements, creating a chilling contrast to the suffocating atmosphere of the room. The boss takes a sip of tea, his deep voice cutting through the silence, announcing that the family's core ledger system is bleeding from the inside, leaked by a traitor who intimately understands every technological loophole. Cold sweat breaks out down your spine, and you brace yourself for the moment a gunshot rings out or a cold katana is drawn from its sheath. But instead of a death sentence, the boss slides a thick file folder toward you. He implicitly trusts the flawless stealth tracking abilities you demonstrated in the Macau case. And now, he grants you the ultimate authority to audit the entire network, purge anyone showing suspicious signs, and bring the traitor's head to him. You reach out and take the folder, your fingers perfectly steady, realizing that the organization has just handed you the most dangerous weapon of all, the mission to hunt down yourself. The thick file folder sits quietly on your desk, as heavy as a death sentence. You have no time to panic or worry about morality. Running from the Tojo clan is tantamount to suicide, and confessing will only bring a much more agonizing death. The only solution right now is one final digital magic trick, creating the perfect scapegoat to take the fall. You reopen the old personnel data file, your eyes stopping on the very first name that pushed you into this dark world, your overweight boss at the microfinance company in Kabukicho. He is cowardly, greedy, and completely technologically illiterate, an absolutely perfect candidate to shoulder the blame of an internal hacker. Sitting in the darkness of your luxury apartment, you begin weaving a web of lies with code. You hack back into that ghost financial company's servers, silently implanting fake cryptocurrency transaction chains into his personal accounts. Every line of command you type is another nail driven firmly into the coffin of the man who once had a gun pointed at his head and forced you to take the blame. You intricately reroute the Triad's dirty money, making the digital ping traces look as though they passed through your old boss's personal hard drive before vanishing into offshore bank accounts. To lock down all suspicion, you send an anonymous email containing a decryption key from his own home IP address to one of the Triad shell companies in Macau. 3 days later, you return to the quiet estate in Kyoto, calmly placing a USB drive containing all the undeniable evidence in front of the Oyabun. You don't need to pull the trigger yourself, or get a single drop of blood on your designer suit. You just stand silently in the corner of the room, watching as the family's high-ranking assassins nod in acknowledgement of their orders and vanish into the night. The next morning, a brief television news bulletin reports on an abandoned factory fire in the suburbs, where police found an unrecognizable charred body, presumed to be a gambling debt settlement. The Oyabun summons you once more, praising your ruthless dedication and absolute tracking abilities. He removes the solid silver family crest pin from his own lapel and pins it onto your chest himself. A rare, exceptional promotion that elevates you straight into the top echelon of leadership. The men who hold the power of life and death over the entire underground financial system. But as you step out of the heavy wooden gates of the estate and into the waiting armored car, there is no sense of victory or freedom. You look down at your violently vibrating phone screen. A new encrypted message from a Macau number has just popped up, demanding a much larger stream of laundered money next month in exchange for continued silence. You lean back against the leather seat, closing your eyes, realizing the cruelest truth of this world. You didn't hack the system. The system has completely swallowed you whole. You have risen to become the most powerful figure in the shadows, while simultaneously becoming a permanent prisoner of the very deadly game you created, a gambling table with no end in sight, where every loophole threatens your life, and any mistake will be paid for in blood.